Hi, Suki. How are you doing?
Good, Kevin. How are you?
Yeah, doing very well. Doing very, very well. Really appreciate you putting some time in your busy schedule and agreeing to jump on a quick call. I think just for the benefit of anyone who ends up watching, today's an opportunity for you to candidly share your experience working with Astris Partners, finding out a little bit about what you were doing from a business development outbound side before Astris, really figuring out what gave you the confidence and what made you work with Astris, and then sort of where we are and our partnership once we've actually partnered. And as we've gone through that process, I think it would really help potential partners in the future. Okay, we're in a similar place. It's good to know what the journey's been for others. On behalf of Team Astris, we're really, really grateful that you're here. So, Suki, I think to really kick off, it would be great if you could give us a quick intro, who you are, tell us about your company, and maybe just give us a little bit of insight around what we're doing, who we're targeting, who we're working with, just to give the audience a bit of flavor of what we've been doing on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Sukhi Pabla. I'm the president and co-founder of Revolution Payroll. We are a entertainment payroll company that specializes in payroll and software development for film and TV production and commercials. It's a very niche industry. There's probably a handful of our types of business that service Canada, United States, and it's very union heavy. So we build software and services that offer something to the production companies that a traditional payroll company does not.
Amazing. Thanks, Suki. And I suppose if we're talking, we obviously had outreach to yourself. I know we had our first call. I think it was a really insightful call, actually. I think it ended up being nearly 45, 50 minutes. You were sort of
Yeah.
educating quite a lot on the market, etc. If we go back to then, about 4 months ago, what did your proactive outbound look like? Was there a structured process in place, or was new business development something that was maybe a bit more on the reactive side? Just good to know sort of where you were before.
Yeah, we built our company from a very relationship standpoint with our customers and our clients because we're still a startup, so to speak. We were heavily relying on a book of business that our salespeople had or previous existing relationships from times past. And we had not really spent any effort at all into any sort of outbound service from anybody. It was all internal. Even if there was any cold calling or emails, it was all internal. So there was nothing here at Revolution in terms of that kind of serving that you provide.
So then, Suki, when you were evaluating options, what was it about Astris specifically that made you want to move forward? Was there anything that stood out for you and the team as well?
Sense. So, well, to start, I used to get reach out from companies like Astris all the time. 99.9% of them either didn't catch my attention or we didn't care to go in that route. So never really considered it. To be honest with you, Kevin, your email caught my attention. So you did a good job getting me as a customer.
Yeah, of course.
But one of the things that, so beyond that email, I was still skeptical on just this service offering in general. And for various reasons, maybe you guys wouldn't understand our industry or you don't know how we work and what kind of people we deal with and how this industry generally buys our type of service. So generally, I was never interested in any outbound service like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Astris just because of those fears. But after speaking with you, and I think we had a great conversation initially, right at the bat, I could tell that you understand the industry and some of the pain points of the industry and our own pain points as far as what we're struggling with in terms of the sales outreach. So that kind of gap got me warmer after that initial conversation that we can take the next conversation, which we did have.
Yeah.
And you came back with a lot more research and
Yeah.
data that you had done without getting paid, without
Mhm.
anything from us, without a contract. You put time into it. And I was really impressed by that, which then led to step three.
Amazing. Thank you for mentioning that, Suki. And it's something I might have even told you before and probably laughed with you about it, saying that, we build our business doing what we would do for you, what we do for our partners, right?
Yeah.
We know email, we know messaging, we know the testing, and to be able to, there's no real better, proof in the pudding, as they say, than actually doing that. If we were generating all of this from ads and saying, here, we're going to be doing, it's a slightly different conversation, but the fact a big part of our own pipeline at Astris has done doing what we do for our partners. And then, yes, the second call that you mentioned, the growth plan, as we call it, it's something that we believe is really, it's vital, right? Because yes, you're considering a partnership, but prior to that, we believe we need to do homework. We need to come in and present and just say, hey, you're not just going to go make a decision off a pretty deck and a handsome British guy or with a
Yeah.
British accent and coming saying, do this. We actually want to show you the value and at least give you sort of an idea. Hey, in the first 90 days, we could do X, Y, and Z. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. And I'm glad that you liked it and gave you more confidence in our process. So now, as you say, stage three or the next step then was actually we started working together. I think specifically is something we're very proud at Astris is our onboarding experience. We put a lot of thought into that process. We do the workshops and then we start building out sort of specific lists, the messaging. I think will be really helpful for the audience. And obviously I'd love to hear it as well is what was your experience and any comments or words you want to say about that part of the process? And I suppose, did it feel different to maybe what you had expected or what you had thought that onboarding experience?
No, the onboarding experience was really good with Astris. I actually learned a lot myself for how I would
Yeah,
onboard clients.
sure.
It was a lot of well thought out plan, and you guys forced us to follow that plan, which is again something that I teach my team, like have an onboarding process for our own clients and have a process. So you guys kind of stuck to this plan, and it actually was a good decision. Regularly scheduled meetings, go through the process, even though sometimes it felt like redundant, but it was actually good because I felt like you guys were learning our business, and that was important for me, for you to know our business. That was a really good onboarding process, and I think that it was beneficial to all of us.
Good, good. Yeah, and it's something I always say, especially during the first two workshops. I'm like, you probably will be repeating stuff. Like, don't worry, it's good. It's good for us to not make any assumptions, and there's nothing too small, nothing to like. Just share everything because from Astra's point of view, the more we can gather, it's a light onboarding experience. If you're bringing someone into Revolution full time, properly, what would you train them? How would you put them? That's the same experience that
Yeah.
we want to go through, and that's why we have this sort of specific process. It only works, we can obviously bring the agenda and ask the questions, but if it's not down to you and your team being so flexible and showing up and being willing to share and do all of that, it's never going to work. So again, from our side, thank you for all of that. And then I suppose last question, which has actually been quite a nice flow with say before and middle and now where we are. So we've been working together now, I think four months, 4 and a bit months now. We've been generating in a consistent flow of meetings. I think what's most important behind all of this is, could you give us a little bit of insight around the quality of those conversations, the type of, say, companies that you're getting in front of in terms of is it matching ICP and the expectation of what we spoke about and where we've got and maybe just any thoughts on that. And then most importantly as well, whether any of that has converted into pipeline or actual business, anything you're happy to share insight-wise, I think just makes us a bit more tangible for people who may watch.
Absolutely. As I said, every step of the way, I was skeptical, all the way from the first call to the meeting to the onboarding to even after signing the agreement. We discussed what the ICP would be and how that it works with our industry and the dynamics in our industry as far as what a customer is. And so we were able to work through our contract from that standpoint because I was skeptical, right? Just having calls and meetings is not enough as far as how we handle our business, right? So you were very, very gracious enough to just even work through the contract and alleviate my concerns. So that was the first step. And then, the end result is supposed to be is the meetings, not how much reach outs you're doing or how many meetings we're setting, but actually who's attending and are they a quality meeting. So I think for the most part, and of course we finished our contract and we agreed to extend the contract because the
Yeah.
service was really good. For the most part, the meetings have been great. The initial couple of calls were, and I qualified them as that's not a qualified customer, but that could have just been a warming up campaign. But I would say since that time, maybe 90% of the meetings have been legitimate meetings and actual opportunities. It's definitely brought our funnel up. And along with just not, even if it wasn't for the meetings, I was looking at this also as a awareness creator for us,
Mhm, mhm.
which is something we lacked before Astris was even if somebody doesn't set up a meeting with you, but at least they know you. And that also something that I'm valuing, right? But for the most part, it's like getting an outreach to 1,000 people that never knew you existed, right?
Yeah.
So one box checked. How can you convert those? We've been able to convert even from the meetings to customers. And so it's been a wonderful experience so far in terms of just going from there to having actual meetings and then converting and conversating with people. And I think now we've gotten into a flow where like everything almost that comes in today is a perfect ICP.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Suki, because we try to, and hopefully you'll agree with this, we don't come in and make claims around this many leads and that many things. For us, it's around, it usually falls into two buckets. Customer may come to us and say, hey, we've done outbound before, but we've hit this deliverability block. But when we did outbound, we were having success. Could you help us scale it and do it better and properly, etc.? Or you have number two, where actually we've never done outbound at all, and we need to test stuff, figure it out, and then sort of scale. I think I'm right to say we're probably sort of more of a bucket two of, as you say, doing outbound proactively. And as part of that, we're very confident in being able to do that refinement quite early on, especially those first few calls. Get used to the process because we're obviously doing your outreach. It gets booked into your diary. Make sure all of that flow, coming back to what I said before, thanks to you and your team who give us that feedback on a daily basis. And when we have our regular syncs, even yesterday when I was speaking to your team, so great to just have that transparent conversation. This meeting was amazing. Yeah, we've closed this business. We're doing more projects, et cetera, et cetera. It's just, it really, really helps us because without that, if everything's like, yeah, it's okay or it's good, it's like, well, we can't, further refine. So it really, really does make a big difference. Thank you again, Suki, for your time. And I suppose bonus plus question, and for anyone who's maybe out there watching, who's considering Astris, anything you would sort of say to them based on your experience now of working with us?
Yeah, I think Astros has been great. We should have done this years ago, to be honest with you. And frankly, there's been outreach to me from Astros competitors, and I don't even look at them because we're finally happy. You guys are doing great. And one of the other challenges that I thought I was going to have is my own internal sales team believing or thinking that this is not a good business model for us just because they believe in relationships and they believe in contacts. And that whole sales team is now absolutely happy with Astris, and they feel like you're a part of their team.
Yeah, yeah, we
Um,
really do have
and
that. Yeah,
um, and
absolutely.
they were skeptical as well, but frankly, I attended the first two calls just to see how this works, and every other call has been attended by them. They're happy with the outreach and they're happy with the results.
Amazing. Suki, thank you so much for your time. Thank you again for your partnership, for your trust in us. And thank you so much for the candid conversation and look forward to a long-term partnership with yourself and Revolution.
Absolutely. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah.